You're probably tired of hearing about AI. Most people are. Personally, I welcome our new robot overlords, and I look forward to them taking my job. I haven't seen any chatbots that could turn wrenches, so it might be a while. In the meantime, I want to see if a computer can diagnose a computer, which is going to require 2 more computers. What could possibly go wrong? This is a 2015 Chevy Trax. It's got a little 1-point-something turbocharged engine. It's a typical rebadged South Korean nightmare. I think it's a Daewoo or something. I don't know. These things are junk. The check engine light is on, and the young lady who owns it cannot get an inspection until that light is out. It has the following codes: P0171, fuel trim system lean; P0420, catalyst system low efficiency; P1101, intake airflow system performance. I want to see if ChatGPT can tell us how to fix this car. Now, since this is a serious experiment and definitely not a shark jump video attempting to milk the AI hype train, I'm going to try to remain objective and not lead ChatGPT towards the right answer, especially since I don't know what's wrong. So let's see what it says. Please keep in mind that this is an AI. It can provide general information and suggestions, but I cannot physically inspect or diagnose the vehicle. It has the P0171, P0420, P1101. Here's some information. All right, let's see if we can go through some of these steps and just see what happens. Let's start with the P0420. It says it could be a faulty catalytic converter, oxygen sensor, or an engine misfire. First step is to check for any exhaust leaks before the catalytic converter. Okay, the catalytic converter is that guy right there. And it is bolted directly to the turbo. It's got a big flange with a gasket. I don't see any way that there could be a leak before the converter. However, there is a pretty obvious leak behind the converter. So the flex pipe is shot. So let's see what ChatGPT thinks about that. Okay, it says yes. An exhaust leak after the catalytic converter can potentially cause a P0420 to appear. Well, this is pretty good. An exhaust leak downstream of the catalytic converter can induce extra oxygen into the oxygen sensor, which can affect the readings of the downstream O2 sensor. This in turn can trigger the P0420 code. Is that an airplane? It's not like we're trying to make a video. That's pretty good. I'm going to give it a point for that one. Let's try the other two. The suggestions for the other 2 codes seem to be pretty similar. It wants us to inspect the intake system and to inspect the mass airflow sensor. So I asked it, what is a normal mass airflow sensor reading? And it said 2 to 7 grams per second at idle, which I guess is technically correct, but that's not very helpful. General rule of thumb is that it should be equal to the displacement of the engine in liters. So this engine should be 1.4 grams per second at idle, roughly speaking. Then I asked it how to test the intake system, and it actually gave me some pretty good answers. It suggested, visual inspection, smoke testing using a propane torch, and then listening for the idle RPM to change, listening for hissing sounds. Those are all pretty good suggestions. So let's follow those and test the intake system. Okay, we're at 2.7 grams per second at 900 RPM. That seems kind of high. any changes in RPM. I don't visually see any leaks. I know we got plenty of propane because I can smell that. This thing I think is called an easy intake. It's a pretty awesome tool. Anyway, let's see what happens here. Yeah, there you go. Billowing out the valve cover. Huh, I thought it would be the PCV here. Well, we ought to be able to see that or hear it. I think it's just the valve cover gasket. It's obviously leaking oil, so if it can leak oil, it can surely leak air, and that would affect our PCV system. That's what I was expecting to see. But something back here is leaking, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if the purge valve is leaking. I don't know, I'm going to have to dig a little deeper, I guess. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's this PCV hose. We got a big old vacuum leak. Actually, we have two big old vacuum leaks. One here and one at this connection here. Those are both part of the PCV system. Now the question is, did ChatGPT really diagnose this problem? And I would say it depends on how you want to look at it. You know, what it did is give us a generic list of things to check based on the codes. And then when I asked it how to check those things, it gave us a generic list of test procedures. We followed those test procedures and we stumbled onto the problem. The issue is, you know, those are all basic things that any mechanic would know. You got a lean code, you check for vacuum leaks. That's like your first week on the job. And even if you're not a mechanic, you know, that's something you're going to find in any Haynes manual or even with a quick Google search. It's pretty general knowledge. The other problem is, despite my intention not to lead it towards the right answer, I think that I inadvertently did, because I know what the problem is. I knew the problem as soon as we read the codes, and I'm sure a lot of you did too. So when I looked at the list that it gave us, I saw that it had checked the intake system in common, so I chose to do that test first. I did not go to the mass airflow sensor, I didn't go to the injectors, I didn't go to the oxygen sensors. I chose that test. So I believe I steered it towards the right answer. The real issue, though, is that ChatGPT has never worked on a Chevy Trax. It doesn't know that this is a super common problem. It doesn't know that when you see the P0171 and the P1101 codes together, that those are related. It doesn't know that GM has multiple service bulletins about this issue. And also, GM does not recommend a smoke test for this problem. And I'll try to explain why. The PCV system on this car is pretty complicated because it's turbocharged. So PCV stands for positive crankcase ventilation. That's kind of confusing. It should be called negative crankcase ventilation. So we're using the intake manifold vacuum to suck the vapors out of the crankcase so they don't vent to the atmosphere and kill all the polar bears. The problem is we can't apply full manifold vacuum to the crankcase. We'll suck all the gaskets in. So we have to regulate that vacuum down. That's the purpose of the PCV valve, or in this case, whatever diaphragm regulator is here. It regulates the vacuum down to some very low vacuum so that it can still suck the vapors out, but not suck the gaskets in. The problem is on a turbocharged engine, we don't always have manifold vacuum. When it's making boost, we have positive pressure here. So there's a check valve, it's right here, and the check valve keeps the positive pressure from blowing into the crankcase. And to still vent the vapors, we have this bypass hose. It runs to the inlet side of the turbo. So when you're making boost, check valve here is closed, and the inlet side of the turbo sucks in the crankcase vapors. Now when you do have manifold vacuum, when you're not making boost, this check valve is open, and there's a check valve down here that keeps the manifold from sucking air past the throttle. The problem with the smoke machine is it has to push against those check valves, so it's not a very good way to test for a leak in the PCV system. And what GM says to do is point it at the outside, you know, the vent in that regulator, and run the engine and see if it sucks the smoke in. That would show you a vacuum leak. In this case, I think it just worked because it found another way. Either the check valves are leaking, or you know, the smoke went around the rings and filled the crankcase, and we found it that way. But it's maybe not the best way to test it. And unfortunately, this thing is built into the valve cover. You cannot service it. You just have to replace the valve cover. Like I said, super common problem. This part will be in stock at any GM dealership. It's a pretty easy job to change it. You can see this one's leaking oil really bad. Oh, also, the leak here on the bypass hose is because it's missing the metal clip that holds it onto the manifold. So somebody must have pulled that off. It's a common thing, they pull it off to look for the check valve down there. This one is still there, but they must have lost the little metal clip. So I gotta see if I can find one or make one or something to hold that on there. And we're waiting on parts, so we'll see if we can do this exhaust real quick. I'd like to take this flange off, because I don't think I can weld that. It's so close to the oil pan. We'll see what happens here. No promises. Unbelievable. We must be living right. Oh, knew it was too good to be true. Amazing. With any luck, we can reuse that MLS gasket too. That would be cool. Okay. I just pulled the whole pipe out. This will be a lot better. I can actually get a decent weld on it. Come on. There you go. Try to get it indexed right. I did break one stud, so we'll have to knock that out, no big deal. So yeah, we're just gonna weld this guy in here. This is my second try. First one didn't fit. This one looks pretty good. That was a whole lot better than trying to weld that on the car. Oh, better plug in the O2 sensor. There we go. Well, you can see how much it's been leaking oil. I guess I should probably check if it's got any in it. Well, the real question is, how many times am I going to kick the camera while I'm doing this job? There we go. Well, I lost a couple boots. I do have spark plug boot pliers. I wonder if that'll work. Oh. There's one. Getting pieces of it. There it is. Takes E10 external Torx. Yeah, it's got oil in it. And there's your PCV passages built right into the valve cover, and that's where the gasket is really chewy. Yeah, it's pretty nasty. Okay, everything's clean. We're gonna put a little bit of RTV on the seam here between the timing cover and the engine block. Here's a new valve cover right from GM. Made in Poland. Comes with the gaskets. Just drop it on. Dorman does make one, but it's actually more expensive. At least it is for me, so I've never used one. There's a torque spec for these. If you like, I think it's like 8 Newton meters. It's basically just hand tight. We do have to transfer our oil filler from the old valve cover, like so. Okay, that's it. Oh, where's my dipstick? There we go. Can you believe the book time on that is 1.1 hours? Gravy train. All right, let's see if I got a little clip for that PCV hose. I've got these quick connect clips like they use on the transmission coolers, the ones that always go flying across the shop. I think the big one might do the trick. It's not like the original clip, but I think it'll do the job. It can't possibly come off there. Okay, might be done. Well, our fuel trim's still kind of high, but the big problem is the downstream O2 sensor. Looks like it's dead. It's the same as before I fixed the exhaust. I thought that the leak might have been causing that, but it must be the sensor itself. So I already bought one. I'm going to go ahead and put it in. Much better. So fuel trim's still a little bit high, but it's not crazy. You want to be around 10% total. Before it was around 60%. And then the throttle position. So in the TSB, it says to check the throttle position, should be around 9 or 10% at idle. If it's down like 7 or 6%, that's a good indication that you have a vacuum leak. Yeah, our fuel trims are perfect at cruise. Still kind of high at idle, which means we probably still have a vacuum leak. So these things are kind of notorious for problems with the intake manifold. So it might be cracked or bad intake gaskets or something. I'm probably not going to worry too much about it. They're also notorious for the turbos failing and the water pumps failing. And, you know, by the time you get all those problems fixed, the CVT transmission fails. So, like I said, these things are just junk. I think it's a lot better than it was. We're going to ship it. So what do you think? Is AI going to take our jobs? I don't think so, at least not yet. It seems like the real triumph of these AI development companies is the marketing. You know, artificial intelligence is a made-up phrase. It can mean anything to anyone. And I thought it was so funny when ChatGPT came out. You know, that was all anybody was talking about, and every other company, you know, Google, Facebook, Amazon, Elon Musk, they took whatever they were working on and they slapped an AI sticker on it and they jumped right on the bandwagon. And that's what it is. It's a bandwagon, in my opinion. I've played around with ChatGPT a little bit. There are things that it's shockingly good at. It's a language model, so it's very good at understanding language, and it can do translations very well. It can write stories that are mostly coherent. It's also very good at computer programming. And that makes sense. I mean, you think about how large the data set is. You know, how many words have been written down, how many computer programs have been written, and it has this huge, massive data set that it can study. There are also things that it's shockingly bad at. It's surprisingly very bad at math. There's lots of examples where people have asked it to multiply or divide pretty simple integers and it gets the answer wrong. Then it tries to correct itself and it gets the answer wrong multiple times. And one thing I don't like is that it doesn't seem to have any way to tell you its confidence. You know, I would like it if it would give me an answer and then say, you know, I'm 60% confident that this is correct. Instead, it just says, here's the answer. It also doesn't seem to have the ability to abstract. So an example I saw is that someone gave it a story that was written in first person. You know, I went to the store, I bought some beer, and they asked it to rewrite the story in third person. He went to the store, he bought some beer, and it didn't seem to be able to do that at all. So I recommend trying it out. It's pretty fun to play around with. The big thing is, I don't know if you noticed, but the internet is an absolute dumpster fire. Like, go try to use a forum or a message board. It's impossible. They're chock full of pop-up ads and banner ads and trolls, and you gotta log in to see pictures, and it's unusable, in my opinion. Even a Google search is just a disaster. You know, you gotta go 5 or 6 pages in before you find anything that really has meaning. The rest of it's all just sponsored links. It's refreshing to go to ChatGPT, ask it a question, and get a simple, plain text answer. So I think that's where it really is going to shine, just in, you know, general internet searches. But I don't know. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. What, you're giving up already? See ya, pup.